While most car companies were still debating whether electric vehicles were truly ready for the masses, one Chinese EV quietly entered the market and began doing something no one expected. It didn't arrive with bold promises, flashy launch events, or celebrity endorsements. It didn't try to look futuristic or revolutionary. Yet within a short time, it started appearing everywhere. In apartment parking lots, outside schools, in small cities, and on everyday roads. Priced around $15,000, this electric car quickly became the default choice for people who wanted something simple, reliable, and electric, without stretching their finances. Its name is the Baojun Cloud, and the way it's reshaping the EV landscape is making some of the biggest players in China very uncomfortable. What makes this story surprising isn't just the price, it's the timing. For years, electric vehicles were treated as either luxury products or experimental tech, something for early adopters, tech enthusiasts, or wealthy buyers willing to pay extra to be part of the future. But while others were still framing EVs as a premium lifestyle choice, the Baojun Cloud quietly treated them as what they were always meant to be for most people: transportation. No hype, no image building, just a car designed for daily life. And once people realized that, sales followed naturally. But this car didn't appear by accident. It was the result of a very specific way of thinking about the Chinese market. To understand the Baojun Cloud, you first have to understand the company behind it. SAICGM Wuling isn't famous for building dream cars or chasing global headlines. Instead, it built its reputation by understanding how ordinary people actually live. While many automakers focus on large cities and premium buyers, this company focused on commuters, families, and people in smaller towns. It built cars for people who cared more about reliability than status and more about value than buzzwords. That mindset helped it build one of the strongest distribution networks in China, reaching far beyond major urban centers. And it wasn't just theory. The company had already proven this approach worked. The clearest example was the Wuling Mini EV, a tiny electric car that completely changed how people in China thought about EV ownership. It wasn't fast, it wasn't luxurious, but it was affordable, practical, and easy to live with. Millions of people bought it, not because it was exciting, but because it solved a real problem. It showed that when the price is right and the product fits everyday needs, people don't hesitate to adopt new technology. That success sent a very clear message inside the company. The future of electric vehicles wasn't just about high-end models and advanced tech, it was about scale. And that thinking led directly to the Baojun brand, and eventually to the Baojun Cloud. It was designed to fill a gap where people wanted an electric car but didn't want to compromise on space, comfort, or affordability. A car for office commutes, school runs, grocery trips, and quiet evening drives home. Driving, in this case, wasn't meant to feel exciting or aggressive. It was meant to feel calm. That's why the car is called Cloud. The idea was simple: smooth, light, quiet movement through daily life. No drama, no stress, just transportation that works. That philosophy shows up immediately in how the car looks and feels. The Baojun Cloud doesn't try to grab attention with sharp lines or aggressive styling. Its design is soft, clean, and neutral. The kind of design that doesn't feel outdated after a year. When you sit inside, the purpose becomes even clearer. The cabin feels open and relaxed. Controls are placed where you expect them to be. Nothing feels excessive or confusing. This isn't a car designed to impress you in a showroom for 5 minutes. It's designed to feel right after 5 months of use. And that difference matters more than most people realize. But the real shock came when people saw the price. A fully electric car, priced between $13,000 and $17,000, sounded almost unrealistic. In many countries, that budget barely gets you a basic petrol car. EVs, with their expensive batteries and complex electronics, were supposed to cost far more. Yet here was the Baojun Cloud, proving otherwise. This wasn't achieved through one clever trick. It was the result of several deliberate decisions, all working together, and that quiet shift is only getting stronger. As charging infrastructure improves and fuel prices remain unpredictable, more buyers are starting to look at electric cars not as a bold statement, but as a logical next step. For them, the question isn't about range records or autonomous driving promises. It's much simpler. Will this car make daily life easier? Will it save money? Will it last? The Baojun Cloud answers those questions without hesitation. And that's why its presence keeps growing, without needing constant attention. What makes this especially important is how it's influencing the entire market. Other manufacturers are watching closely. When a simple, affordable EV starts pulling buyers away from more expensive models, it forces uncomfortable conversations inside boardrooms. Features that once felt essential start to look excessive. Pricing strategies that relied on brand power begin to weaken. And suddenly, companies are reminded that technology only matters if people can afford and trust it. In many ways, the Baojun Cloud isn't competing through innovation alone. It's competing through restraint. There's also a psychological shift happening among buyers. Once people experience a calm, low-maintenance EV, expectations change. They stop caring about engine noise, gear changes, and fuel stops. They start valuing silence, smoothness, and predictability. For families, that translates into less stress. For commuters, it means quieter mornings and relaxed evenings. And once that becomes normal, going back feels unnecessary. This is how long-term change really happens, not through dramatic launches, but through habits quietly forming. The Baojun Cloud also exposes a deeper truth about electric mobility. Not every EV needs to be a technological showcase. Some need to be tools. Tools that work every day without demanding attention. Tools that don't punish the owner for choosing practicality over prestige. And as more people make that choice, the definition of success in the EV world starts to shift. Sales numbers become less about hype cycles and more about sustained demand. In the end, the Baojun Cloud isn't trying to lead a revolution. It's simply responding to reality. People want affordable transportation. They want reliability. They want simplicity. And when those needs are met honestly, adoption follows naturally. That's why this car feels less like a trend and more like a preview of what mass-market electric vehicles will eventually become. So while headlines continue to focus on the fastest, most expensive, and most futuristic EVs, something quieter is unfolding in the background. A car that doesn't ask for attention, but earns trust. And that may be the most powerful move of all. If this direction continues, the future of electric vehicles won't be decided by who shouts the loudest, but by who listens best to everyday people. And that's the part many people still underestimate. Markets don't shift overnight because of one headline or one breakthrough. They shift when enough ordinary buyers make the same quiet decision at the same time. The Baojun Cloud benefits from exactly that kind of momentum. Every new owner becomes proof that an EV doesn't have to be complicated or expensive to be worthwhile. Every month of trouble-free ownership reinforces the idea that electric driving can be boring in the best possible way. This is also why the Baojun Cloud doesn't rely on heavy marketing. Its strongest promotion comes from visibility. Neighbors see it parked outside. Coworkers talk about how little they spend on running costs. Friends notice how calm and silent the ride feels. Over time, curiosity replaces skepticism. Instead of asking whether EVs are ready, people start asking why they waited so long. That kind of word of mouth is something money can't buy, and it's incredibly hard for competitors to counter. For larger manufacturers, this creates a difficult dilemma. Do they lower prices and sacrifice margins, or do they double down on premium positioning and risk losing volume? The success of cars like the Baojun Cloud suggests that the middle of the market will become the most fiercely contested space in the coming years. Not everyone wants cutting-edge tech. Most people just want a car that works, costs less, and doesn't demand constant attention. And once that expectation sets in, the entire industry has to adjust. What makes the Baojun Cloud especially interesting is that it doesn't feel temporary. It's not built around subsidies, short-term hype, or novelty. It's built around routines, morning commutes, school drop, grocery runs, evening drives home. These are the moments that define car ownership for most people, and this EV fits into them without friction. That's why it doesn't feel like a compromise. It feels like a solution. Looking ahead, the biggest impact of the Baojun Cloud may not be its sales numbers, but the mindset it represents. It challenges the idea that progress always has to look dramatic. Sometimes progress is quieter, slower, and more grounded. Sometimes it's a car that doesn't try to impress you, but slowly earns your trust day after day. And in a market as large and competitive as China, that kind of trust can reshape everything. So, while attention remains fixed on the biggest brands and the boldest claims, the real story may already be playing out on ordinary streets. A simple electric car doing exactly what people need it to do.